As the shadow of the Galactic Empire loomed over the entire universe, a ragtag army composed of the downtrodden, politicians, gamblers, and idealists tore the first crack in the Empire's Iron Curtain. Over 4 years, the most hardcore Star Wars series, Andor Season 2, premiered in 2025 with a staggering production cost of $290 million. As an anti-heroic epic series that subverts the Star Wars universe, the biggest suspense of this season lies in the shocking Easter egg. At the end of Season 1, the protagonist Andor's hand-assembled Imperial materials turned out to be the core of a planet-destroying super weapon. This season picks up from the ending of the previous installment. After joining the Rebel Alliance, Andor gradually became an important figure in the Rebel Alliance under the Empire's brutal rule. One night, in the Xena 73 testing facility, Andor sat by the window with a serious expression, seemingly anxiously waiting for something. Not long after, a woman in uniform hurried over and handed a detonator to Andor. Ever since he joined the Rebel Alliance, Andor had been determined to overthrow the Empire's brutal rule. However, the Rebel Alliance was vastly outmatched by the Empire, so, in order to strengthen their power, Andor subverted the female technician in front of him. Using her position's advantages, he stole an advanced TIE fighter prototype. Immediately after, Andor followed the female technician's guidance, and quickly arrived at the hangar where the fighter was parked. After confirming that no one was around, he decisively inserted the detonator into the control panel, then quickly shot and destroyed the surveillance equipment. However, upon entering the cockpit, Andor was stunned. He had no idea how to operate the complex instruments, but at this point, he had to cautiously operate the controls. He kept encouraging himself out loud. At first, everything went smoothly. Andor successfully started the fighter and prepared for takeoff at any moment, but reality is often contrary to expectations. Due to his unfamiliarity with the operating procedures, the fighter was out of control, careening around the hangar. The blaring alarms echoed throughout the space. A team of security personnel rushed in with guns drawn. They opened fire, launching a fierce barrage at the fighter. Feeling that things were going badly, Andor hurriedly attempted to start the fighter again. In the next second, under the impact of a laser cannon, the fighter was forced to halt its flight. Fortunately, the weapons on board were extremely powerful. One shot turned the security personnel in front of him to ashes. After successfully escaping from the hangar, Andor piloted the fighter at breakneck speed. He prepared to find a safe place to hide temporarily. At this moment, a bottomless abyss suddenly appeared ahead. Andor reacted quickly and immediately stopped the fighter. But when he was about to restart it, the fighter suddenly malfunctioned. The operating system couldn't receive any commands. What's worse was that 2 missile-equipped aircraft were approaching him. Andor was instantly alarmed and frantically operated the controls. The fighter careened wildly in the narrow gorge, trying to shake off the missiles chasing behind him, but they relentlessly pursued him. Clearly, they wouldn't give up until they hit their target. At this critical moment, Andor decisively pressed the launch button. In the next second, several missiles struck the mountainside. The falling debris obscured his view. Taking advantage of this, Andor piloted the fighter into a cave below. He then used the cramped space to shoot down the pursuing aircraft. The fighter then roared out of the cave. Andor had once again escaped a dire situation. The next morning, a sleek fighter jet appeared among the clouds. 3 young men and women who had been chatting on the ground looked up in shock at this scene. They were civilians suffering from the ravages of war, so they were quite familiar with the fighter jet. They thought it was the Empire's army deploying troops again, trying to instigate new conflicts. But sitting in this massive machine was Andor. As the jet successfully emerged from the clouds, and the ground situation became clear, Andor maneuvered the fighter, and slowly landed in a clear area deep within the woods. He carefully surveyed his surroundings and, after confirming there was no immediate danger, immediately opened the hatch and stepped onto the open ground. He continuously called out his companion Boka's name, but for some reason, there was no response. Andor could only continue walking forward, preparing to check the situation. Unexpectedly, a loud shot came from a distance. It claimed that 15 energy rifles were aimed at him. Hearing this, Andor's heart tightened, and he quickly explained that he wasn't an Imperial pilot. He then followed the person's instructions, and tossed away the energy rifle in his hand, then raised his hands and knelt on the ground. Seeing that he had surrendered, a group of fully armed strangers emerged from all directions. They surrounded Andor, who had disarmed and surrendered. Who were they, after all? Meanwhile, a highly classified meeting was taking place at the Malsan border. Elites from various departments of the Empire gathered together. The event to be discussed today was ordered not to be recorded or leaked in any way, otherwise, they would face the Emperor's personal attention. Everyone then began to watch the latest video. The video introduced a new species discovered on the planet Gorman. Experts named it the Gorman spider. Its silk could be woven into fabrics suitable for human wear. The garments made from it were elegant and durable. Its exceptional quality was widely recognized. The Gorman spider produced such resilient silk thanks to a type of mineral found within the planet. This rare mineral was also a crucial material for creating the Death Star's coating. Naturally, this attracted the Empire's upper echelon's covetous gaze. Moreover, the current Emperor had always championed the energy initiative. In recent years, he had sought more stable and limitless energy sources to transform the entire galactic economy and solidify the Empire's authority. Thus, under such circumstances, the conquest of Gorman had become imperative. The Empire planned to create a plague or natural disaster to force the native inhabitants of Gorman to leave voluntarily. However, this idea was met with opposition from some attendees. As a result, the group debated endlessly, unable to reach a consensus in a short time. On the other side, Ander had been pinned to the ground by a group of unidentified armed individuals. From their attire, they appeared to be a grassroots rebel group. Although Ander tried hard to explain that he had stolen the fighter and had arranged to meet his teammates here, the rebels refused to believe him at all. Some even brought out the test flight device he used for disguise, claiming he was an Imperial pilot. However, regarding how to deal with Ander, the rebel group experienced a split. Some advocated killing the unidentified Ander, but others believed they shouldn't kill the only pilot present, otherwise, everyone would remain trapped in the dense forest. The group argued over this issue endlessly, and nearly came to blows. At this moment, Ander suddenly stepped forward. He claimed to know that they were from the Maya Pei forces. Everyone was taken aback. They couldn't understand how he knew this. Ander didn't elaborate further. He simply said he had done business with them multiple times. Since they were all part of the Rebel Alliance, why couldn't they extend a bit more trust to each other? However, the rebels remained skeptical. In the end, they didn't agree to release Ander. Instead, they decided to investigate the fighter on their own. Unexpectedly, they accidentally triggered the weapon launch system. In an instant, smoke and dust filled the forest. Ander felt utterly helpless, but there was nothing he could do at this moment. Meanwhile, on the open plains, a makeshift base trailer stood silently. His companions anxiously awaited Ander's return. However, they were unaware that he was facing an unprecedented crisis. Soon, night fell. The rebels lit torches and continued to discuss their strategy. The topic remained how to deal with Ander, and how to start the fighter to escape this area. This argument was clearly more intense than before. What Ander didn't expect was that the group actually began to turn on each other. Ander quickly reacted, and seized the opportunity to dash toward the fighter. While everyone was distracted, however, the energy blasts pursued him relentlessly. Worse still, in the chaos, Ander was forcibly captured by one side, and taken into the crashed rebel aircraft. The other group occupied the Empire's fighter, using it as a stronghold to confront their former teammates from a distance. As the night deepened, the rain in the forest intensified. Uncertain of the dangers in the surrounding environment, everyone could only stand at the hatch, on guard. Two teams sent to scout the area brought back news. They discovered that the bodies of their comrades had vanished. Only severed limbs and personal belongings remained. It was clear that something more terrifying existed in the woods. Fortunately, the second half of the night passed without incident. Everyone successfully welcomed the sun of the next day. However, at this moment, the rebels holding Ander had run out of ammunition and supplies, but fortunately, they found a few emergency rations inside the aircraft. But the small quantity wasn't enough to distribute among everyone. Ander was even worse off, relying solely on drinking rainwater to stave off hunger. The rebels, using the crashed aircraft as a stronghold, were in an even worse situation. They had no food, and could only split the pumpkins they found in the woods. Unfortunately, the pumpkins inside had already rotted and smelled foul, but in order to survive, the squad leader took the initiative to start eating the unpalatable pumpkins. Meanwhile, at the Imperial Standards Bureau, employee Karn from the Fuel Purity Department was handing over his duties. He had been just an ordinary staff member before, but not long ago, he was suddenly reassigned and promoted. It turned out that Karn had discovered irregularities in the department's account records. 200 Kova charging rods had gone missing. Clearly, someone inside was stealing from the department, so he spent months secretly investigating. Eventually, he successfully identified the thief, and uncovered an Imperial supply theft ring spanning 4 star systems. Because of this, Karn was able to rise through the ranks so quickly. He then earnestly advised the newcomer stating that as long as one has courage and determination, this would be the best launching platform. Karn then returned to his office. His partner, Mary, had been waiting for a while. For years, they had tirelessly pursued Ander and the support network around him, including Luthen, but they had never managed to grasp the key evidence. Now that Karn had been promoted, Mary was also selected as a core member of the Gorman Project. At the urging of their superiors, she ultimately decided to terminate her collaboration with Karn and would devote all her energy to the Gorman mission. After all, if this plan succeeded, she would have a chance for promotion. Meanwhile, Luthen was attending the wedding of Imperial Senator Mance's daughter as a guest, but in reality, he had already formed a partnership with Mance and maintained secret contact with her. As the wedding proceeded, Luthen's subordinates quietly infiltrated the ship. They used pre-installed listening devices to steal confidential conversations among Imperial officials. In the fog-laden woods, the two factions of rebels were still in a tense standoff, but at this moment, everyone had run out of food. Scouts from the crashed aircraft camp discovered that soldiers from the Imperial fighter were moving the aircraft by hand. They seemed to be trying to turn it around, to aim the cannons at them. According to Ander's calculations, even if they could only move 50 centimeters per hour, if left unchecked, by nightfall, the cannons would be completely aimed at them. Upon hearing this, the camp squad leader's expression darkened. He decisively ordered a preemptive strike to completely thwart the enemy's plot. Before the aircraft squad could turn around, in an instant, the sound of bullets whizzing through the air erupted in the forest. The two sides fell into a stalemate, engaged in a tug-of-war, until night completely enveloped the land. The remaining soldiers finally realized that this endless killing would only end in mutual destruction, so both sides decided to lay down their weapons, and each sent representatives to negotiate. The tense atmosphere was almost palpable. Everyone thought a bloody brawl would erupt at any moment, but to their surprise, in the next second, a few fierce-looking men extended their hands to play rock-paper-scissors. Clearly, they intended to settle the outcome in this manner. Meanwhile, Ander, imprisoned in the camp, seized the opportunity. As the guard was distracted, he quickly grabbed the guard's weapon and successfully escaped. As he moved through the fog-laden forest under the cover of night, the rebels were still heatedly arguing over the outcome of the game. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a chilling howl suddenly echoed from deep within the woods. Before anyone could react, a giant beast lunged out of the mist, charging at the people who were negotiating. The piercing screams quickly ceased. It was clear that the person was in grave danger. The survivors, in terror, picked up their torches to investigate. Only then did they realize they were surrounded by a pack of man-eating wild boars. In panic, they raised their guns and began firing wildly into the darkness. The scene instantly became chaotic. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Ander quickly ran toward the Imperial fighter and swiftly dealt with the remaining soldiers. By the time the rebels became aware, Ander had successfully seated himself in the cockpit. Heavy fire turned toward the fighter, but the cockpit glass remained unscathed. In the next second, the fighter slowly ascended, and then broke through the night, disappearing into the sky. Not long after, the fighter ascended to the designated altitude and maintained stable flight. Only then did Ander let out a sigh of relief. He then began to fumble around in the cockpit, preparing to set up communication equipment to contact his handler. To his surprise, this so-called most advanced titanium fighter in the galaxy didn't even have an operation manual. Ander could only manually connect the communication device. However, he accidentally activated the acceleration system. The fighter's trajectory completely defied conventional dynamics. Fortunately, he eventually succeeded in contacting his handler. At the moment the communicator connected, Ander's pent-up anger erupted instantly. He accused her of providing incorrect intelligence. This wasn't the model he was familiar with at all, which had nearly caused him to die in Test Facility 73. He had even been forced to participate in a real-life planetary survival scenario. Now, all he wanted was to return home and reunite with his family. However, in stark contrast to Ander's emotional outburst, the woman's tone was unusually calm. She warned that the star sector where Ander lived had been blockaded by Imperial forces. All communication devices had been cut off. If he wanted to survive, he shouldn't act rashly and must wait for further instructions. But Ander was worried about his family's safety, and thus couldn't take the handler's warning seriously. Moreover, he was currently piloting an Imperial fighter, and as long as he was careful, he believed those complacent Imperial soldiers wouldn't trouble him. Ignoring the handler's objections, Ander resolutely piloted the fighter toward his home star sector. Meanwhile, Ander's teammate, Bray, received urgent news. The Imperial army would arrive in the area the next day, conducting a thorough search of their residents. They would also check the residents' biological visas. This meant their identities could very likely be exposed. Therefore, they had to evacuate before nightfall. In addition, they needed to contact Ander as soon as possible to inform him of the situation here. As soon as he finished speaking, Bray and his companions rushed back to the trailer base and quickly packed their gear. They aimed to relocate before dark, Just as Bray was saying goodbye to the robot, a fighter jet flew overhead. He hurried into the trailer base to inform his teammate Anna, who was calibrating equipment. Although Bray hoped that the person in the jet was Xander, Reason told him that they had to leave immediately. However, unexpectedly, as the two were about to start the trailer, they realized their teammate Will was missing. It turned out that during their time living in the village, Will had fallen in love with a girl named Bella, so before leaving, he had come to say goodbye to his girlfriend, but he had been discovered as a rebel by her. What was worse was that Will had also unexpectedly discovered that the Imperial Army had arrived at the village ahead of schedule, but at this moment, his hoverbike was parked at the village entrance. Now he couldn't go back to get the vehicle, nor could he take the risk of going back to inform Bray and Anna. Meanwhile, as Will hadn't returned to the camp for a long time, Bray was suddenly filled with a sense of foreboding. After much contemplation, he finally mounted his hoverbike and headed toward the village. However, just after he left, the trailer base received an unexpected visitor. An Imperial Army officer personally came to visit. Left behind, Anna could only walk out as if nothing was wrong, pretending to be a regular villager while speaking with him. However, he had already seen through her status as an illegal resident, even used this to threaten her, making inappropriate advances. Just as the officer thought he was about to succeed, the next second, Anna's fist struck his face. The sharp pain instantly ignited the commander's fury. In the struggle, Anna was knocked down by him and nearly lost consciousness. In her hazy state, Anna realized she was being dragged. In her panic, she fought to break free from her restraints. She grabbed a wrench from the ground and swung it at him. Blood gushed from the wound. The officer was instantly enraged, drawing his dagger and shouting as he charged at her. But to his surprise, Anna seized the opportunity, swinging the wrench to strike him in the temple. His scream alerted the guard outside. He looked toward the trailer in confusion, then immediately requested assistance from a nearby patrol team. Next, he carefully approached the trailer with his gun drawn, but all he saw was the officer stumbling out, covered in blood, before collapsing to the ground. The soldiers immediately panicked and aimed their guns at the trailer door, shouting at Anna inside to surrender. Immediately, at this critical moment, Will returned to the trailer base just in time. He attacked the armed soldier from behind. Taking advantage of the soldier's distraction, Anna decisively fired her weapon, killing him. Will, who had rushed back from the wheat field, attacked him. Bray also successfully arrived at the village entrance. He turned off the engine, got out, and crouched as he moved through the wheat field, trying to discreetly observe the situation in the village. But he was caught by patrolling Imperial soldiers on the spot. Realizing he couldn't escape, Bray immediately feigned anger and emotionally accused the villagers of betraying him, even attempted to strike them. But in reality, it was to prevent the villagers who had helped him from getting involved. Just when Bray thought he was doomed, the Imperial squad that had captured him suddenly received an urgent order and decisively left him behind. At this moment, an Imperial fighter suddenly flew in from low altitude. Seeing this scene, Bray on the ground instantly realized that the person in the fighter jet was Xander. So, taking advantage of the guard's distraction, he quickly dashed into the nearby wheat field, successfully started the hoverbike and sped away. The Imperial soldiers quickly reacted, raising their guns to fire at Bray. In the next second, Xander's support attack was a resounding success. The pursuing Imperial soldiers were completely wiped out. But when he locked onto the hoverbike, emitting black smoke, in the wheat field, a wave of unease washed over him. He quickly maneuvered the fighter to land, and rushed out of the cockpit, sprinting toward the direction of the hoverbike. However, what he saw was Bray's lifeless body. Panicking, he rushed forward and picked him up. But no matter how he called out, Bray didn't respond. At this moment, Anna and Will also arrived. Hearing their familiar voices, Xander held back his grief and informed them of Bray's death. The three had no time to even gather Bray's body, and helplessly boarded the fighter. With the roar of the powerful engines, the fighter quickly soared into the sky, carrying the three of them away from this sorrowful place. Meanwhile, as they fled in disarray, Senator Mance's daughter's wedding was being held as scheduled. The scene was vibrant and bustling with activity, but Mance's feelings were very complicated. Her gaze fell upon her daughter, who was elegantly dressed. Memories suddenly flooded her mind uncontrollably. She recalled that she, too, had married at her mother's insistence. To secure a political future for the family, she had married a husband who could provide her with support, but she was forever trapped in a loveless marriage. Years later, her own daughter was about to repeat the same mistakes. The innocent smile felt like a blade, constantly piercing Mance's heart. But when the attendant urged the bride to enter, Mance hesitated to speak. but ultimately didn't say the words to cancel the wedding. This union involved too many interests, and was no longer something she could control. Not long after the wedding reached a special segment, Mance's husband showcased his archaeological findings to everyone, claiming that with Luthen's assistance, he had recovered the long-lost statue of the ancient temple. However, Mance's expression was very heavy, especially after he introduced Luthen to the crowd. Her feelings became even more complicated, because only Mance knew the unspeakable secrets between her and Luthen. Sure enough, after the special segment ended, he took the initiative to walk over to her, but the two only exchanged a few simple words. Mance displayed an expression of despair. Luthen also quickly left the banquet hall. This summarizes the content of episodes 1 to 3 of Andor Season 2. What dangers and challenges will Andor face next? Will he succeed in overthrowing the Empire's rule? All of this will be answered in future updates. Overall, this season continues to maintain top-notch standards in visual effects and sound design. Whether it's the dazzling effects of battle scenes, or the design of alien worlds, it presents the audience with a breathtaking sci-fi world. Additionally, the plot continues from the previous installment. It expands the world building based on the first season, and supplements the prequel era of Star Wars. Not only does it showcase the early secret operations of the Rebel Alliance, but it also reveals the Imperial security crackdown, and the secret construction of the Death Star. The storyline spans multiple time periods, with every 3 episodes forming an independent chapter. The time span extends over 4 years, while unfolding unique stories against different backdrop settings. It smoothly transitions into the storyline of Rogue One. This narrative approach not only conveys the passage of time and the growth of characters, but also brings unexpected surprises in the development of key plot points and the multidimensional shaping of characters. It delivers unforeseen delights to the audience. Meanwhile, this season continues to deepen the themes of Rogue One. It presents the shocking side of the Rebel Alliance without the use of lightsabers. At the same time, it delves into the complexities of human nature. The characters tread the line of morality, facing various difficult choices. Andor's story isn't just a journey of personal redemption, but also a reflection on the fate of the entire Galactic Alliance. If you enjoy my channel, please like and subscribe it.